The weak crave to be liked. The powerful crave to be remembered. That single difference separates those who lead from those who beg. And Machiavelli knew this with a clarity that most people today are too afraid to admit. In a world where everyone's addicted to approval, the truly powerful operate with brutal indifference. They don't chase validation, they command respect. And if given the choice between being liked or being feared, Machiavelli made his position very clear. Always choose fear. Why? Because fear creates control. And control, not love, is what keeps power in your hands. Now don't mistake this for cruelty. It's not about being rude, aggressive, or unnecessarily harsh. It's about understanding this one cold reality. The moment you seek to be liked, you become smaller because you place your value in someone else's hands. And once you do that, you become manipulable. Because if they can give you approval, they can also take it away. Which means you're no longer in control of your own self-worth. They are. That's not power. That's slavery dressed in compliments. Machiavelli dissected human nature like a surgeon. He saw that people are unreliable, emotional, and self-interested. They will praise you today and betray you tomorrow. They will cheer you in victory and abandon you in defeat. So why would you ever build your sense of self on something as fragile as their affection? That's why the smart ruler, the truly Machiavellian mind, never plays for likes. He plays for position. Let's look at how this works in real life. The person who wants to be liked enters every room scanning for approval. They smile too wide. They agree too quickly. They apologize too often. They shrink themselves just to be accepted. And worst of all, they betray themselves just to fit in. Every day, they give pieces of their dignity away in exchange for shallow validation. They think they're building connection, but really, they're building invisibility. Because the more likable you try to be, the less memorable you become. But the person who walks in with presence, who doesn't need to be liked, who doesn't flinch under silence, who speaks when it matters, not just when there's a chance to impress, that person is remembered, respected, maybe even hated, but never ignored, and never underestimated. That is Machiavelli's law. The desire to be liked makes you easy to control. The willingness to be disliked makes you dangerous. Why? Because when you stop trying to be liked, you become unpredictable. People don't know how to play you. They don't know what you're thinking, what motivates you, or where your limits are, and when they don't know those things, they become cautious, careful. They give you space. They think twice before crossing you. That's respect, and respect lasts longer than charm. But Machiavelli went even deeper. He believed that if you wanted to lead, if you wanted to be above others, you had to make peace with being separate from them. Not emotionally distant, but psychologically untouchable. You had to break your addiction to being liked, because the masses don't want to follow someone who looks like them. They want to follow someone who stands above them. So what does this look like in practice? Let's say you're running a team. You can try to be the cool boss, overly friendly, always accommodating, making sure nobody feels uncomfortable. But soon, they stop taking you seriously. They push deadlines. They argue back. They stop respecting your word. Or you can choose presence over popularity. Set the tone. Say less, but mean more. Don't chase agreement, assert direction. Don't defend every decision. Let your outcomes speak. And suddenly, the same people who would have mocked you for being too soft, now watch what they say around you. They move differently. They rise to your level or they fall away. Either way, you're no longer liked. You're followed. Because when you build power through likability, you're building on sand. But when you build it through awe, you're building on stone. Now Machiavelli didn't mean to suggest that being hated was always better. He was far more nuanced. He said it is best to be both loved and feared. But if you must choose one, choose fear. Why? Because love is voluntary. It's emotional. It disappears under pressure. But fear lasts. It creates hesitation. It creates control. And in many cases, respect grows from that very fear. People may not like how you move. They may whisper behind your back. But when the moment of consequence arrives, they obey. They submit. They step aside. Because they know you don't need their approval. And people admire what they can't manipulate. That's the power. And here's the twist Machiavelli loved most. Once you stop caring about being liked, you paradoxically become more magnetic. Why? Because confidence is attractive. Independence is attractive. Strength, The kind that doesn't bend for attention draws people in. They may not like you in the casual sense, but they'll be pulled toward your gravity. They'll wonder about you. They'll want your approval more than you ever wanted theirs. That's the inversion. The flip. When you stop trying to be liked, others start trying to win you over. And that's the throne you want to sit on. So ask yourself, are you moving through the world trying to be accepted or trying to be respected? Are you molding yourself to make others comfortable? Or are you showing up as something so solid it forces them to adjust to you? Are you weakening yourself with charm or sharpening your edge with silence? Because you cannot be both liked by everyone and feared by anyone. And as Machiavelli knew, it's the man who refuses to be liked that ends up being remembered forever. The hunger to be liked is the most underestimated weakness in the game of power. It creeps in wearing the mask of humility, empathy, even leadership. But underneath, it's a desperate plea to be accepted. And Machiavelli knew this better than anyone. He saw that beneath every ruler's fall, there was almost always this hidden flaw, the desire to be seen as good. And that's where most people break. Because when you want to be seen as good, you become easy to guilt, easy to shame, easy to manipulate. The moment you prioritize your image over your impact, you stop acting with force and start acting with caution. You start filtering yourself through what people will think, not what you know is necessary. And Machiavelli would laugh at that, because to him, the world isn't a place that rewards goodness, it's a place that uses it. You think your kindness will make people loyal? It won't. You think your honesty will make people respect you? It won't. You think your humility will make people admire you? It won't. It might make them like you, but liking is cheap. Respect is expensive. And that's why Machiavelli said a prince must learn how not to be good, and use this knowledge as necessity dictates. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths he ever wrote, because it flies in the face of everything we're told growing up. Be nice, be liked, fit in. But Machiavelli didn't want to fit in with men. He wanted to rise above them. And that takes a different kind of psychology. You don't need to be cruel, but you do need to be willing to not care what they think. Because here's the real power play. When you're willing to be misunderstood, when you no longer need people to get you, you start moving in ways that terrify them. You make decisions they wouldn't have the guts to make. You say things they only think in private. And slowly, they stop judging you and start watching you. That's the shift. That's when you go from likable to untouchable. But here's what most people don't realize. This desire to be liked doesn't just show up in public. It poisons your private life too. It's the reason you can't say no. It's the reason you tolerate disrespect. It's the reason you bite your tongue around people who deserve to be told off. It's the reason you stay silent in rooms you should own. Because deep down, you're still trying to be liked. You want their approval, their applause, their soft smiles. You want to be invited back. But the powerful don't wait for invitations. They create their own tables. And they don't care who's uncomfortable. Because they understand this law. The more people like you, the more they assume they can get away with. But the moment they respect you, the moment they know there are boundaries, the moment they know you don't play for popularity, they adjust. They speak carefully, they move intentionally, they stop pushing, and they start calculating. That's when you know you've flipped the power. And Machiavelli would weaponize this in every room he entered. He'd let others be charming. He'd let others play the good guy. He'd observe them handing out smiles like coins, hoping to be remembered. And then, when the moment came, he'd strike. Coldly, unemotionally, effectively. Because he didn't care if they liked him. He cared if they obeyed him. And this is where the modern world traps people. We've been conditioned to believe that being liked is the highest form of success. We post for likes. We speak for likes. We even live entire lives carefully designed to keep people smiling at us, even if those people are beneath us, unworthy or irrelevant. It's a prison of constant emotional labor, and it's killing your presence. Machiavelli knew that true presence doesn't come from attention. It comes from detachment. The ability to walk into a room and not need anyone's energy. That is real magnetism. That is what makes people feel your gravity. When they can't control your reactions, your tone, your decisions, you become an object of fascination, maybe even fear. And now here's the most Machiavellian part of all. The world rewards those who don't need it. If you need respect, they withhold it. If you need validation, they starve you. If you need love, They exploit you. But if you need nothing, suddenly, they offer everything. Because people are drawn to what they can't move. They're drawn to the man who's not begging for their opinion. They're drawn to the woman who doesn't soften her truth just to avoid discomfort. That's the paradox of power. Once you stop chasing it, it starts chasing you. Machiavelli didn't write about popularity. He wrote about leverage, about advantage, about how to hold your position when everyone else is losing theirs. And in every example, from ancient courts to modern politics, the lesson holds. Those who are desperate to be liked get used. Those who walk alone get followed. So now ask yourself the hard questions. Are your words sharp because they're right, or soft because you're scared? Are your decisions driven by truth or by the fear of disapproval? Are you building a legacy or just collecting smiles? Because only one of those paths leads to respect. And as Machiavelli would whisper, respect is not given. It is built in silence, carved through action, and defended with indifference. The most dangerous thing about wanting to be liked is that it feels good. It feels virtuous. It feels warm. People smile at you, they praise you, they say you're such a good person. And while you're soaking in that approval, your power is quietly slipping through your fingers. You don't even feel it happening until it's too late. Machiavelli knew that most men were not defeated by war, by rivals, or even by scandal. They were defeated by the need to be seen as good, that craving to be well thought of, that fear of being misunderstood, that subtle addiction to the eyes and opinions of others. That's why powerful people never chase likability, because it turns you into something predictable. It makes your power conditional. And worst of all, it makes you owned. Because here's what people don't tell you. When someone likes you, it gives them the power. They think they understand you. They think they have influence over you. They think they can mold you, joke with you, expect things from you. But when someone respects you, it gives you the power. Because they watch what they say. They measure their words. They second-guess their assumptions. Respect creates space. Likability creates entitlement. Machiavelli warned rulers about this trap constantly. A prince who tried to be loved by everyone was crushed by the expectations of his people. One mistake, one decision they didn't like, and suddenly their love turned to rage. But the ruler who never asked to be loved, he couldn't be broken. Because there was no illusion to betray. He made no promises of kindness. He made no apology for strength. And that made him feared, but also respected. Let's bring this into your world. Think about the last time you held back from saying something true because you didn't want to offend anyone. The last time you agreed with someone even though you didn't actually believe what they were saying. The last time you let someone cross a line just to keep the peace. Those are not small moments. Those are moments where your power leaked, where your presence shrunk, where you allowed someone else's comfort to come before your clarity. And over time, those little moments become your reputation. You're the nice one, the easygoing one, the reliable one, but never the respected one. Never the one people fear disappointing. Never the one they second-guess before crossing. Machiavelli would call that a slow death. Because when you live for the approval of others, you slowly become less of yourself. You mute your edge. You hesitate in your truth. You walk into rooms trying not to disturb anyone instead of walking in like you own them. And here's the cruel twist. The more you try to be liked, the less you are. People can feel it. The neediness, the flinching, the constant emotional checking in. Are they okay with what I said? Did I go too far? Should I apologize? That kind of energy makes people lose interest. It makes them stop listening. Because when you don't respect yourself enough to stand firm, why should they? But when you're willing to be disliked, that's when your power begins. You say what you mean. You walk away when you're disrespected. You choose truth over harmony. You stop softening your edges to fit into weak spaces. You make decisions with spine, not sugar. And suddenly, the room feels it. Your presence changes the temperature. People adjust to you. And even if they don't like you, they can't ignore you. That's the Machiavellian move. Now let's talk about the internal shift this requires. It means killing your addiction to external validation. It means being okay with silence, with stares, with people whispering about you. It means realizing that not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Not every insult needs to be addressed. Not every hater deserves your breath. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be respected. And sometimes, that respect only comes when you're willing to let people hate you for the right reasons. Not because you were cruel, but because you refused to play small, because you refused to lie, because you refused to bow. Machiavelli didn't fear being seen as harsh. He feared being seen as irrelevant. He knew that history doesn't remember the agreeable. It remembers the uncompromising. So how do you make this real? Stop explaining yourself when no one asked. Stop apologizing for having standards. Stop reshaping your tone just to keep things comfortable. Stop asking for feedback from people who haven't built anything. Stop posting for likes and start moving in silence. Because the person who needs approval is forever in debt. But the person who walks without it becomes the one others try to earn from. You want to be powerful? Then be willing to disappoint. Be willing to confuse, to offend, to trigger, to walk away. Because the man who doesn't flinch in the face of disapproval is the one others can't stop watching. Not because he's trying to be liked, but because he no longer needs to be. That is Machiavelli's law. Let others obsess over likability. You become unshakable. Here's the final truth Machiavelli understood, and it cuts deeper than any sword. The more you are liked, the more they think they own you. The less you need to be liked, the more they fear losing you. This is the reversal that makes men into kings. When you stop performing for love, for applause, for acceptance, you become free. Free to act with clarity. Free to command. Free to offend if offense is necessary. And once you have that freedom, everything changes. You start walking into rooms differently. You stop asking, how do I come across? And start asking, what must be done? You stop seeking softness in people's eyes and start projecting sharpness in your own. And suddenly, the dynamic flips. They don't control your value anymore. You do. That's what Machiavelli wanted every leader, every strategist, every dominant presence to realize. If you want to be remembered, if you want to build something that outlives your smile, your charm, your likability, you have to let go of needing to be understood. Because respect is built on mystery, not on relatability. If you're always explaining yourself, always softening your tone, always clarifying your intentions, you're making yourself emotionally cheap. You're handing out pieces of yourself to anyone who asks. And worse, you're teaching the world that your emotions are public property. But when you stop explaining, when you stop adjusting, when you stop needing to be interpreted correctly, you create space. You force people to observe, not consume. You become difficult to place, and in that difficulty, you become valuable. People fear what they don't fully understand. They respect what they can't control. They remember what they can't imitate. That is the law. Now let's look at how the greats lived this out. Was Steve Jobs likable? Not really, but his presence made everyone raise their standards. Was Malcolm X likable? No, but his voice sliced through generations of silence. Was Machiavelli himself likable in his time? Absolutely not. He was exiled, misunderstood, feared, but centuries later, quoted by presidents and dictators alike. Because people don't follow those they like. They follow those who make them feel something they can't find anywhere else. Power doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being necessary. And necessity is built through conviction, not charm. So here's your final warning, and it's brutal. If you're still trying to be liked, you are not ready for real power. If you're still afraid of being called cold, arrogant, too harsh, too much, you are not yet dangerous. Because the day you become powerful is the day you stop being available to every opinion. It's the day you stop apologizing for your edge. It's the day you start building your identity not around comfort, but around consequence. And that's when people shift from liking you to respecting you, even if they never say it out loud. Because behind closed doors, they will talk about you differently. They'll say, he doesn't need anyone. She moves like she knows something I don't. You don't want to cross that one. He's not like the rest. That's the energy, that's the presence, that's the Machiavellian signature. You walk into a room and they don't feel affection, they feel authority. You speak and they don't just listen, they adjust. You act and the world doesn't just applaud, it reacts. And when someone dares to challenge you, you don't flinch, you don't defend, you don't debate. You move on, you rise above. You let the silence do the punishing, and your next result makes every insult look like dust in the wind. That's why powerful people never try to be liked, because they don't need adoration. They build dominance, they earn reputation, and they command respect. the kind that lasts far beyond their smiles, far beyond their mistakes, far beyond the noise. So let them like someone else. You? You were never here to be liked. You were here to be remembered, to be feared, to be respected, to be followed, even in silence. And that is how Machiavelli would build an empire. Not on charm, but on presence so undeniable it made likability irrelevant.